So take a look at this. Corporate America promised to hire a lot more non-white people. Folks, don't use people of color. That excludes us from humanity, and that is reprobate for them to do. And then it actually did.
Good point.
You know, the thing that I'm gonna read this. I heard some other younger content creators saying, "Can you believe that now they're discriminating against white people?" I got some sad news for all our young listeners out there, people listening live or in replay. This has been going on for generations. This is just the uptick that occurs. It's anti-whiteism is incremental, and so it's just steady. But I have been refused many jobs. Lots of white guys older than me refused many jobs because they were discriminating against us to bring for all these years non-whites and females. But what's interesting, actually, there's another story right here, and I'll just read one line from it. This is from last year, talking about the same stuff right here. This is, let's see, where do I have it? It's right here. 1 in 6 hiring managers have been told, and this is, of course, they're going to give numbers that are conservative in the general sense of the word for what they're actually doing, but have been told to stop hiring white men. This is just last year. And these are these same big corporate companies. It was obviously more than 1 in 6. But it says here that additionally, this is the second line in this article, and I want to thank Kate for finding this for me. It says 14% of hiring managers said they have also been told to deprioritize hiring white women. There's an interesting thing there. Of course, increasingly, the anti-whites don't need white women to participate to undermine Western civilization. But if they're told to deprioritize hiring white females, then that means at some point they were prioritized, and they couldn't be prioritized over anybody but white guys. But we look here, it says the year after Black Lives Matter protests, the S&P 100 added more than 300,000 jobs, folks. And we're not talking about like noble jobs. All working for a living is a noble thing. We're not talking about just like the janitor here. We're talking about the S&P 100 added more than 300,000 jobs, and 94% of those went to non-white people, which means that 94% of the time in hiring, they were actively discriminating against white people.
So how is that not a crime against humanity, by the way? How is that something that is celebrated and touted by Bloomberg as if that is a celebratory thing? Imagine you did that in India and you said, okay, well, 94% of our top jobs are now going to Chinese people or going to Africans. How would the Indian people feel about being replaced in their own employment? Like, that's a big deal, employment. This is how you put food on your table. This is how you have a life. This is how you raise children. And now we're being removed from the employment square. Now it's not just about censorship. Now it's about taking money from us. So the whole thing to me is just, it is such a crime against humanity. For this to be touted and celebrated is sick. It is disgusting. And when I saw this stat, I gasped. I could not believe it. At first I didn't. I thought, oh, it must just be service industry jobs. But when I looked closer, I saw that no, it was like managerial jobs. And now they're going for the CEOs. Now they're going for the top dogs of the companies. But what was interesting is that they're also removing Black people from the square as well. If you look closely at the stats, it's Asian people that are rising to the top. And that's not a surprise. That it really is not. So you're just going to replace white people with high IQ Asian people. So it's still an affront to Blacks who think that, oh, well, we're winning the diversity war. No, you're not. You're being replaced by Asians and Indians.
Yeah, and that's what you see happening in wholesale in Canada and Australia. They bring in high IQ non-white people to be the new managerial leading caste, which is what's becoming of the West, is a place that also has caste like India. They're bringing these people in to be our managerial leadership caste. And we just see here at West Point that there's your military leadership for the future. They're not going to be able to not make these females into generals, admirals, whatever it might be, the branch of service that they're in. they're not going to be able to keep these non-white people. They're going to have to put them in as part of anti-whiteism, discriminate against white males and increasingly white females. And you see in the corporate America where the enormous salaries are, and this is the thing that I try to, it drives me nuts, because you have these people, like we had a battle. Kate had a battle with a female on Twitter months back that was saying, oh, any white guy that is saying he's having any hard time getting a good job as a liar. He's just a lazy. He's just overtaken with lethargy. That's all it is. Look at right here. How many times do we have to actually see the data that aside from our lived experience, almost every white guy can tell you that we go out to find work and we are told in no uncertain terms, you're not getting this job. We are diversifying the company. We are, and it's to various degrees in the human resource departments will tell you. I've had them actually tell me outright, not you. It doesn't matter how you did in school. It doesn't matter how many times you've won awards at previous employers. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. All that matters is you are a white male. What does this end up doing for a person's life? Well, it radically changes our people, for one thing. There's a breach of the social contract with our government because our government is allowing us to be discriminated against on the basis of our birth. How does that change our relationship with our government, governance, and laws? What does that also do for our desire to achieve, to advance, to make something good of that sensation of ownership of our country, and therefore the desire to protect and preserve and prolong the existence of that environment? It destroys it all. It destroys it all. When you're a white male in the West today, you have learned, and you continue to learn, and it's worse by the day, that you're hated, you're not wanted, this isn't yours. No matter how hard you work and no matter what innate talents you have, they're not going to benefit you. You will actively be discriminated against on the basis of your birth. And what about the consequences for the families that these white men would otherwise have? Do they not have families as a consequence because they decide they hate their life, they hate the world, they have to take a job far beneath them? What about the consequences, that unknowable consequences that these white guys would have done with the earnings that they made from these executive jobs, businesses they would have started, improvements that they would have made in the world for everybody of all races that live in certainly the West, but even beyond, because so many of our creations make their way into non-white countries to benefit those people as well. The costs are literally incalculable. Oh, totally. And this is, as you say, celebrated.
Yeah, it is despicable. The one thing that I will say, the one saving grace is, like, good luck to these companies. Let's see how long their diversity programs last for. Let's see, because I promise you it won't last long, because there's an inherent ability that white people have that other races just, every race has their own thing that they can bring to the table. And obviously we created Western civilization, so we have something very special about us. So that translates also into the business realm. And who's creating these companies, by the way? Do we have a diverse profile of the people creating them? Because I promise you they're whites and Jews. That's who's creating these companies.
That's right.
And so I do find it interesting that they're willing to die for diversity. Really, they're willing to lose money for the sake of diversity. It's hilarious. And there is a little bit of me that will be happy when I see the revenge element, right? Like when I see the downfall of these companies. Something about it will make me smile with glee, because this is exactly what you asked for. What did you think was going to happen? And the other thing that's interesting is how many discrimination lawsuits are they going to have in their hands? Not from white people, but from the diversity cast that they have hired. Yeah. And then it doesn't work out. Oh, okay, you're fired now. Oh, no. I'm suing for discrimination, because you know how litigious these people can be. Yeah. And, that's going to cost companies how much money, right? It won't be, we fired you because you're showing up late or you weren't doing a good job or these sorts of things, right? That's not the reason. Right. I got fired because of racism. Therefore, I'm going to sue. right? And then who's going to be the lawyer, by the way?
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be the lawyer.
Yeah.
So true, Joe.
Well, I actually heard something really interesting. I think it was Adam Carolla that was talking about it. Maybe this was a couple of years ago, and they were saying that companies were actually hiring white men because they have the least amount of rights in the workforce now.
Oh.
And so they were cheaper to hire and they had the best output, but they weren't suing for discrimination. And so they were hiring whites because they were like, oh, well, they're not going to get away with suing for discrimination, right? They're going to just shut up and take it. So we're going to hire them because they're not as problematic.
Wow,
so
that's a great
white pills in there too, right?
Well, I guess the few white people that get hired will then suffer second-class citizenship.
Well, yeah,
I hadn't thought about that. They will be able to, and I'm sure they are abusing the hell out of white guys because for the exact reason they've got to show up, they've got to do. And I imagine what these companies will do is they'll keep just enough white people so that they keep chugging along.
I think